Thanks for joining us. We are ready to start in about 3 minutes, so we're gonna start this. We're gonna let people come in for a few minutes and then start the event. I'm going to make my video available so that I'm not a random voice on the internet talking to you. Um, in the meantime, while we wait for more people to join, I would love to know where you're joining us from. So I'm sitting here in the neighborhood called the West End in downtown Vancouver, and I'd love to know where you're joining from. And a quick note about the chat is that if you're going to share anything in the chat, make sure that everyone can see what you're sharing. So there's a little blue button that by default says panelists only. And so if you can click that and make it so that panelists and attendees can see your chat, that'd be great. Or it might say everyone. It depends on your version of Zoom. So Julie, thanks for joining us from St. Albert. Barbara from Wonok. Awesome. Barbara, I am very ignorant. I don't know where Wonok is. Can you share where that is located? Da-da-dum. One sec, I'm seeing some stuff here. Da-da-dum. East Maple Ridge, okay. Thank you for sharing that. So we're gonna start, for those of you who just joined, we're gonna start this event in about 2 minutes. We're just waiting for more people to join. Very excited for all of you to be here. Thank you for joining. It's a very rainy day over here on the coast. So I love that you decided to spend your rainy evening with us here. Thank you. We're gonna wait 1 more minute and then start the event. And we're about ready to go now. So I'm gonna let that slide. Yeah, there we go. Hi everyone, welcome. And my name is Jorge Amigo, and I'm the head of cultural programming for the Vancouver Public Library. I'm gonna be your host for today. My colleague Candy is also working on the event, and they will be in the background making sure that everything runs smoothly. So please say hi to Candy in the chat. If you have any tech issues or questions, just send them to us in the chat, but choose only the panelists so that or choose myself or Candy so that only us see them, and we don't flood the chat with tech issues. But if you do want to say something that you want everyone to read, like ask a question to the authors or share something from your experience, please make sure that the setting on your chat is set to panelists and attendees or everyone so that we can all read your comments. So just, I really encourage you all to participate and to be vocal during the event, so please use the chat. Now, before we begin, I want to acknowledge that we are hosting this event from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh. And I want to encourage all of you to read and understand the history of this land and the people who have taken care of it for thousands of years and what it means for you to be here. Now, if you're joining us from another part of the country or another part of the world, there's a great resource that Candy is going to share in the chat so you can learn about the land where you live. Now, tomorrow is a very important day. It's the very first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It is a somber day for reflection, for remembrance, for learning, and for action. And I want to encourage all of us to participate in a Drums for the Children event that's organized by the Kamloops Te Secwepemc Nation. And this is going to take place online at 2:15 p.m. tomorrow. The invitation is to gather wherever you are to drum and sing for the missing children of Indian residential schools. So we're going to share a link to that specific event. I encourage all of us to join and remember and reflect on that moment. Now, today's event is very special because we get to hear from two Inuk writers who will talk about the experience of Inuit people living in southern Canada. So I'm excited to introduce them. Norma and Napatsi, can you please join me on stage? Hello, nice to see you both. Norma Dunning was born in Quebec to an Inuit family. She's an academic who researches Indigenous Peoples Education, and she's a writer. Her previous story collection, Muktuk and Other Stories, received numerous awards, and she's also the author of a poetry collection called Eskimo Pie. She lives in Edmonton, where she's joining us from. So thank you for being here. And Napatsi Folger was born in Iqaluit, Nunavut, and raised both there and in North Vancouver. She's the associate editor for the Inuit Art Foundation and recently earned a Master of Fine Arts degree in creative writing from the University of British Columbia. Prior to that, Napatsi spent several years working in policy for the government of Nunavut. So great to have you here, Norma. Napatsi, please take it away.
Thank you so much. Hi, Norma.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm well.
Norma and I are actually working separately on a different project for Inuit Art Quarterly. So it's nice to be able to chat tonight about your other creative work, which I have the cover here. Sorry, my out of focus background's making it hard to see, but it's a beautiful book cover and a beautiful piece of literature. I just wanted to acknowledge that, just as Jorge said, I'm on the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I'm just a few blocks away from the Capilano Reservation here in North Vancouver, and I'm glad that they shared that link for everyone to have a look in case you are not aware of the sort of importance of that kind of land acknowledgement. So I'll just get right into it. Norma, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit more fully about your work at the university?
Right, I'm a university professor. I'm with the University of Alberta, and I have a PhD in Indigenous Peoples Education. My Bachelor of Arts and Master of Arts was through the Faculty of Native Studies, also at the University of Alberta. And I currently teach a required course. So the good thing about that is they're all forced into my room, and they don't like it. But it turns out to be, it's not so bad. But so that's, that's basically how, Monday to Thursday is just teach, and fall over at the end of every day. So anyway, it's good work. I do good work, and it's it's a course that explores Indigenous Canadian history and present day circumstance. And often, it's very enlightening for many of my students who, because we go through school without learning Indigenous Canadian history. We just, it's an absence within, I think, every curriculum in Canada. So that's what I do on when I'm not sitting on Zoom.
Thank you for introducing that. You also did a minor in creative writing and have produced all these incredible books. And Tainna, which we're talking about today, it's a collection of short stories, and each story talks about a different perspective on sort of urban Indigenous people. And you and I had the discussion just before this webinar went live. We were talking about how you grew up in the South, not in the North, and largely unaware of your indigeneity as a young person. And I think it's really interesting, having just learned that after I read the book, how clearly that comes through in your stories. Do you want to just give the audience just a little bit of background, so that when we're talking about that, just where you grew up, and just for reference?
My father and my mom, we were a military family, so we moved every other year. And I will always say that, we lived in all the places that nobody drives to. Nobody gets up in the morning and says, I know, let's go to Sulika, Ontario today. Like that just doesn't happen. So we lived often in remote, not north, but northern types of geography when I was coming up. And when I wrote Annie Muktuk, I wrote it as an honoring to my ancestors. So it was important for me to write this book into present day with Inuit who live in the South. And it really explores the way people look at you as an Inuk person who's living out of context or their idea of where you should be. And it troubles that over and over and over again. And so there's different things that have happened in my life that are included in this book. But I've spent a lot of time troubling what Inuit identity is. And we have to, it's something that, Inuit don't get the, they don't get the visibility. And when we think about the Inuit population in Canada, which is only 65,025, approximately 19 to 20,000 Inuit live in the South. And so that population in the South will just continue to grow and grow and grow. However, even though Inuit live everywhere, there's always this idea that you should be in the North, like tucked away in the North. And if you're not, well, then your authenticity is always on being questioned, and it's always on display. And so that's what I was thinking about when I was putting together these stories. And to me, it was important to create characters and geographies in modern time, and to put that out there because Inuit are modern people too. We get up, we go to work, we go to school, we teach, we do all these other things. And so to me, that was very important to keep that type of theme going throughout each story.
I think that's great. I just hearing you talk about that brought to mind your story in this collection, Eskimo Heaven.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I loved that piece. I really liked how you sort of drew all of these modern elements into a piece that also covered, traditional sort of ideas of spirituality. Can you talk a little bit about your research or knowledge about that kind of traditional Inuit spirituality that's gave that sort of Gothic lens to some of your stories?
Well, one of the beautiful things about being at a university is you have access to really old material, like stuff that is so out of print. It's been out of print for like 50 years. But so Cameron Library on the University of Alberta campus is like the Northern Library. And I used to just go there and I would read like for hours, just read and read and read. And there's, just tons of books in there and maps, old community newspapers, and like those community newspapers, that's just really gossip. That's just like people saying, hey, did you know Mrs. Smith had tea over at her house? But I mean, they're putting it in print, right? And so it was, so I had access to a great deal of information. And throughout all of that, it was, it's not so much that I was sitting there thinking, oh, I better write this down. It was just being able to dive into all of that material and just enjoy it, like just absolutely enjoy it. And one of my sons started university while I was still there. And when he came along, I took him to that library, and I said to him, I said, hey, Nate, look at all these books. And he says, yeah, wow. And I said, I've read them all. And I felt like I'd read them all, but it, to have that kind of archival material, that kind of old writings, to be able to just absorb them, just take the time to really enjoy them. And so with all of that reading, and it's not like I sat down and wrote notes, that, it comes back, what we read stays with us, and it'll come back again. So it was, and it was important to me to be able to blend, today and tradition, because we're so often called out on, well, you're not traditional, you're not the real deal. You hear it over and over again. But it was, so that was, a really conscious effort to put together that kind of blending, because I believe tradition exists and it doesn't go away. And when I'm teaching, I never teach Indigenous people from a point of loss. Like, I never teach that. And if my students start to talk about, well, you lost your language, you lost your this, your that, I say, no, we didn't, or we wouldn't be here. If we had lost it, we wouldn't be here. I mean, technically, we shouldn't be here when we think of a 97% genocide within a population overall globally. None of us should be here as Indigenous Canadians, but we are. And I believe that tradition transcends generations. It does. But what I encourage young Indigenous people to do is to get out there and find it, and to grab onto it and claim it and own it. And so to me, that's a very important message that I give out to Indigenous students. And it's important to be able to present tradition in modern day, because it didn't go away. It didn't die. It didn't disappear. So that's, I had all this wonderful material to read and draw on. It meant that I skipped a lot of classes, but that was all right. And so it all comes together, like it'll all come back, when it's needed, when it's needed. So that's how we have Itura in a McDonald's as a spirit, as a spirit guide. And I just loved him, like, as a character. I loved him. I loved creating him, and just because he was a character that you could have him do or say anything and it would make sense.
Yeah, I think he stuck out as one of my favorites in the whole book. Just, yeah. I knew so many Inuit men who had that sort of jovial, yes, attitude and sense of humor, and sort of poking fun at people who might have a little bit too many airs, So I really loved that story in particular, and his character was really right on for me. I think it's great too, like we had the discussion earlier about that sort of balancing between feeling like an Inuk and representing Inuit when you are an Inuk in the South, like an urban Indigenous person. I've seen this a lot more in the last few years, just with my own work, having moved back down South, but also having grown up partially in the North and partially in the South. I think you did a really great job of that in these stories, of showing that kind of displacement that Inuit have when they're living in cities in Southern Canada. Did you find that you drew a lot on your own experience having grown up in the South for these pieces?
Oh yeah, for sure. And in many urban centers, there will be an Inuit organization, but it's often, well, it's often very, very small. And what I always found odd is that people, especially academics, they would say, where are you in Edmonton? Like, where are all of you in Edmonton? And it's not like we created an Eskimo village downtown or anything like that. And so I would think, like, why do people ask that kind of stuff? But they do. They ask that kind, like, where are you all? Because there's this expectation that you'll all gather and live in one specific end of the city. And so when you talk about that displacement, when I first moved here, I just thought I was the only one. To find out later that there's like 1,200 Inuit that live here in Edmonton. but that shows how the visibility isn't there. And so to me, there is an Inuit group here in Edmonton, and I did do some volunteer work with them for a couple of years. But it's hard to do that kind of community work and to really keep a group together and keep it moving and keep it going. So it's not like I have a lot of Inuit friends here in Edmonton, and I know Inuit people. But for me as a professor, I really focus on the Inuit students that I'm able to teach, and be able to provide support for them, because that's something that is very lacking, I think, right across in post-secondary, is support for Inuit students. And so there's students that I kind of keep a close eye on and help along. But it's that sense too of being alone, like you're a standalone Inuk. I wrote a poem, a standalone Inuk. And it's that you're very much on your own, like there isn't that real sense of community, within an urban setting. But I mean, it's up to Inuit to, to also gather together and get it going and, push for it. So it's that's something that, comes up within each of these stories, is this sense of being alone. Like you are alone, you're the only one. And I think that is, that's a common thread, I think, for Inuit life in the South.
Yeah, I think that you captured that really well throughout each piece. Not only that sense of kind of loneliness, but also the intergenerational trauma that is ubiquitous across Indigenous Canadians, but particularly you did a good job, particularly about how it affects interpersonal relationships within family members. And I thought that was really well done in your pieces, particularly the first story, Amik. I mean, I don't want to delve into your personal life, of course, but I think it's fantastic for this kind of collection that is written by an Inuk woman, but also from the perspective of urban Inuit, so that there's access and sort of recognizability for non-Indigenous readers or non-Inuit readers, particularly, to orient themselves around what's happening in the stories and sort of be placed into the real idea of how much intergenerational trauma affects people and their relationships to their family. Did you want to focus on that when you were writing these stories?
No, like people have asked that in the past, like, did you sit down with the theme? Not at all. Did you, and it's not like I sit down with this great moral revelation that I'm going to give the world. No, I just have this idea for what I think is a good story. So let's write it. But I spend a lot of time thinking about my stories before they ever get written. And it's a long time that they percolate away in my head. And then, when I do sit down to write, that story is like snap. It comes very, very quickly. The story that took the longest to write is Dania, the closing story. That was like a 3 weeks of writing. At 2 a.m, I'm laying in bed, I'm thinking about it, and then like, why lay here and think about it? Get up and write it. And so, you up and you write, and then you go to the university and you teach, and then you come home and you look at it again, and then you're up again at 2 a.m, and everything that you wrote the day before gets tossed and you start again. So to me, writing is just a lot of rewriting is what it is. And when I think of the opening story, well, every family fights, every family fights. And it amazes me how people love that story, they can really relate into it. But I think it's like that commonality of every family fights. That's just the way it is. And I think we would be odd, the family who doesn't fight, I think they have a problem. So, it talks about the love of between two sisters, and it reflects on their growing up time. And now, now they're adults and they've been apart, and now they come back together. And, one of the things that I have seen often, and maybe it is not a very nice thing to say, is that often, Indigenous women will latch on to non-Indigenous men. And it's like, I've hit the jackpot, I don't have to worry anymore. I have, I have food security. I have a roof over my head. Like these things that I think other, non-Indigenous women don't have to deal with as much. And so often it doesn't turn out. It just doesn't turn out well. And so it was, taking that idea as well and putting it into that story, because I've seen it time and time again. And it's not that I don't know how to express that really respectfully, but I think, when we come from a place of harm and we find security and solace in this man who we think, I'm okay, I'm with him, like I'm safe, but it often is not safe. And so that was like one of the things that came in along with that story. But people love it. They just love Amik. And it's great. I'm glad they love it. I'm glad they can relate to it. It's good.
Yeah. You had mentioned that the lengths and how long it took for some of your stories to be written. Did you write all of these stories with it in mind that they were going to be a collection that you published together, or?
When I started writing them, no. Amik was actually written probably like we're in 2021. So Amik was written in around 2015. But then, it's going back and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. And, Eskimo Heaven I was on the bus one day and it was just a really cold day. And there, anyhow, it was crowded, we're all kind of stuck together. and it's, and it's winter. And so the bus it's humid and, the windows are dripping anyhow, I was there and I was looking around, and I don't, that thought just came to me, like, and I thought, what would happen if a white priest went to Eskimo Heaven? And I thought it was so funny, like just to have that thought, but I didn't know how to write it. I did not know how to write that until I gave it thought, and then it came. And Kunik is, I was also on the bus coming home, and another cold winter day, and the bus is packed, and when I step on, there's a seat, one seat next to a gentleman. And I think, oh, good. And I just sit down, and then the smell of this guy. And I thought, oh, okay, so this is why nobody's sitting here, and now I'm sitting here, and now the bus is packed, and I don't know how to get out of here. So, but anyhow, I looked over at him, and like we looked at each other at the same time, and I said to him, "How are you?" And he looked at me and he said, "Pardon?" And I said, "How are you?" And he said, "I don't know. No one ever asked." Like, what a profound thing,
Yeah.
to come out of that guy's mouth. And then he was getting off at the next stop, and so I move out, and then he steps, and I sit down again, and he looked at me, and he said, "Thank you, thank you." And I looked for that guy. I looked for him for the next 2 years. I used to think, I'm going to find him, and I never ever did find him. So the story of Kunik, it's based on that what is it, maybe 3 minutes out of my life where I run into a homeless fella, and we end up sitting on a bus together, and something so simple as, how are you? So that's where Kunik came from. And then These Old Bones is a reappearance of Annie in her later years, and it was good to write her. It was, because I always think, like I'll just probably write about her forever. And somebody else can sort it out and turn it into a novel. I won't. But so it was good, to come back to her and to be able to talk about her, because when I finished writing her the first time, when I finished, I remembered thinking, yeah, that marriage isn't going to work. Those two are not going to. That is just not going to fly. But it's funny how, like these characters become very important to me, and they live with me. And if I want them to leave, I better write them, get them out of my apartment.
Yeah.
So that's, they matter to me, and I fall in love with them. I fall in love with them. And then, like Danuta, the closing story is based on an Inuit, very young Inuit woman whose body was found on a golf course here in Edmonton.
Oh, a real story then.
Yeah. And, when she is found, she has no ID. There's zero ID, no wallet, no zero, and no purse, nothing. And what Edmonton Police Services ended up doing, they took a picture of her hoodie, because they knew it was not from around here. And so that is what they post into the paper and online, is this hoodie, and are asking, does anybody know someone who wore a hoodie like this? And eventually her mother is found, and they were both on the street by then. They were both homeless and living on the street. And the follow-up with the police was, well, we'll do a toxicology on her, and we'll know cause of death. but she came back clean. Her blood was clean. And so
Yeah.
she remains a cold case here in Edmonton, and she was a young Inuit girl who came into Edmonton with her mom, and hoping for a much better life. And it was just really sad what happened to her. So I thought about her a lot, and during the course of her time here in Edmonton, she did have a child, and her baby was removed immediately, like zero contact. And so I often thought, what if she'd gotten 2 afternoons a week where she could spend time with him? But that's such an automatic for Indigenous women, especially single women, single young women, and just to automatically have your child taken, and you really have no voice in any of it. So it's an honoring to her, and so that's where we get the title. So it was good to write her. It was good to write her.
Yeah, that story particularly really moved me. I had to take a little break reading it because it touches on so many different elements of my own life. Not that I lived that life, but family members who are homeless and who have had children taken away. And actually, my namesake died of exposure. So all of that sort of culminated at the end of reading this collection of stories for me. And I was like, oh, I can't. Just crying. And my partner came in. He's like, are you okay? I was like, I'm fine. I do. Yeah. I think that the story title, and that's the sort of the title of the collection too, is really really poignant for what we've been talking about this whole time. Is, did you have that sort of in mind, that the unseen ones in reference to Inuit specifically who are in the South?
Yes, yeah, very much. And it's funny because like I've gone and I've taught at Boyle Street. I taught creative writing to homeless people, and then I worked at iHuman for about 6 months. I picked up a 6-month contract, and I was working with homeless youth, getting them going, getting them writing. And when you go into those kind of spaces, you really see the vulnerability of humanity overall, like that vulnerability. And so that, and working and trying to get people to write, and I know that I would have, some, I remember First Nations women, and they would have a hard time holding a pen because like it was something foreign for them, to hold a pen or a pencil. But they would write once they got going, like they would go. But in all of that, I did meet Inuit along the way, homeless Inuit here in Edmonton. And to me, we have to think about that. We have to put that kind of hard stuff that we don't like, that is not butterflies and rainbows. We have to put that into literature. We have to put it out there and have people think about it. One of the comments that I received from a professor from the University of Alberta who teaches creative writing, but I never ever sat in on any of his classes. He wrote me an email and he thanked me for writing this book. And he said, because of you, I will never look at homeless people the same way again. I will never do that again. And so that's good. There's this one guy out there who's going to think a little differently. And so I think that's worth it. It's worth it when you get that one person who sends you an email and said, you changed the way I look at it. I won't be like, I won't think the way I did before. So it's wonderful. It's worth it then.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for chatting about this. I think we're coming up to 7:40 and we can maybe open up the conversation to questions from the audience. If people have questions, you could pop them into the Q&A. And here we go. Here's one from Anna DNM. Norma, what, if any, influence does 2 a.m. have on your work? Do you think you'd write different kinds of stories if you weren't teaching Monday to Friday with your writing time on the bus and or at 2 a.m.?
It's just the way my schedule works. And, honestly, here in Edmonton, it's 20 to 9. I'm normally going to bed now. So this is like, like a Friday night. Look at me, I'm staying up late. And, but if I could, I've never ever had that luxury of to even be able to say to maintain one job. Like I've never even been able to just say I have one job. I always have at least 3. And I would like that, that luxury of time where you just focus on writing. But I think, if we believe in our work and if we believe in the importance of what it is that we're putting together, and if we hold value in it, getting up at 2 a.m., I would say to myself, this is just for a period of time, a very brief period of time. It's not, you will not be getting up at 2 a.m. every morning for the rest of your life. You're going to do it to get this story done. And I think a part of that too is it forces, like it forced me to write. And where perhaps if I could just like lay around and think about writing day in and day out, I wouldn't get anything done. I would just keep laying around thinking about it. So that kind of pressure can help. It can. And it forces you to produce and it forces you to write it and rewrite it. But for me, morning is always the best time of day for me. That's my best time. Thank you.
I don't see another question right now. Feel free to keep popping them in there, but in the meantime, I have plenty. So you had talked about, now I'm forgetting all my questions now that I'm on the spot here. What is your favorite of the stories in this collection?
My very, very favorite will always be Eskimo Heaven, because I made myself laugh. To me, if I make myself laugh or I make myself cry, then it's good. Then it is good. And don't think, don't think that with some of my writing, it just sits here, it just sits. And I'm writing it, and I'm thinking I'm gonna throw up. I've written all this violence, I'm gonna throw up. And I do. And then to me it was like, that was good writing. but there's this emotion, like this vulnerability, and your own self is being poured onto these pages. And it's I learned to, when I write something that was hard, for me, to just go out for a walk. Like just go for a walk after you finish writing it. And if that walk is 20 minutes or if that walk is an hour and a half, well, that's what was needed. But to me, if you don't feel it, don't write it. If you do not feel it yourself as the writer, don't put it down. And I think readers intuitively know when we have where it's forced writing. Like we can pick up on it as readers. It's like, well, like this is, you can almost feel that writer's like anxiety of putting something together. And to me, if writing is not fun, don't do it. If you're having, if you're having where you feel stuck, go away from it. And if going away from it means you walk away for 2 days or 2 hours, then that's what you do. You do. And it's because, like there's a certain amount of self-care that has to come into what we produce as artists. And so as this book can go out into the world, and guaranteed there will be people who will not like it, guaranteed that people will say, well, why do you write, why do you write this? Why do you write this? And when I was doing some poetry classes, and the higher up you go, the smaller the classes become, and the professors are very selective about who they will bring into the room. And we each have to, we would have to produce a poem a week, but then we'd have to share it with everyone in the room via email, read it prior to class, come in, and then critique. And one day, this guy, he takes my poem and he holds it up like this and he says, Norma Dunning, you write shit. And every week we have to read your shit. And I am sick to death of reading your shit. And he said, and I'd just like you to know, nobody's going to publish you. And so you sit there and you think, wow, like now I have a choice. Now I can get mad at you and really turn this into something ugly. Or you know what, buddy? I can go home and write so much shit over the next week that you are just going to be sick of me. And so we have to, make those kind of calls at certain times. And as artists, when people are just saying like you're wrong, or how can you produce this stuff? And I did a public reading for CBC radio downtown, and a beautiful mic. I never had to raise my voice. It was perfect. Like the audio, the sound was awesome. But I finished reading a story that contained references to residential school. And this one woman stood up and she said, who are you? Who are you to write this kind of stuff and then to publicly read it and just re-traumatize everybody? Who are you? And so you get these kind of reactions from an audience. And I said, well, I'm a writer, and you know what? I think we should talk about residential school every day. That's what I think. But you're always, and in time, I think you learn how to manage an audience and who you're going to pick your fights with, and who you're just going to let it slide, like just let it go. But there's always at least one, usually in every one of my audiences, who was like, you're full of it. You got that wrong. There's always that person. You got that wrong. And so they're so much better informed than I am. But you learn to, well, that's the way it goes. That's the way it is. That's part of being an artist, I think, too.
I think that's great that it's so complimentary, sort of like both of us being Inuit who have grown up at least partially outside of our like traditional ancestral homes, that got us used to that sort of attitude from the creative world, like that sense of, taking your lumps and knowing when to just not listen to your critics and stuff like that.
Well, you know, and
And I'm glad that you did publish 3 books, in fact, and I hope that you mailed them to him.
and 2 more are on the way, but I'm glad I found a publisher who would, you know, put up with me. Oh, man.
We have another question from Julie, and I don't want to presume to answer it. She said, how do you properly pronounce the name of your book? I mean, I'm from Eastern Arctic, and I would say Tainna, but you can,
Diana,
sorry?
Dinah, like you just said, Diana. Like I say Diana. I put a E, long E.
Oh,
So
okay.
Diana, like, so, and I think the title throws people off, you know, like they, oh, how do you say that? You know, it's not hard, really. So, but I think like people seem to, you know, they seem to be kind of worried about saying it incorrectly, or so I don't know if it's like that when people are in a bookstore and they see a word that is unfamiliar, and like, ooh, what's that? Oh, well, you know, I can't even say it. Why read it? So,
I think it's great though that that Julie, you asked. And for me, particularly with a name that's difficult to pronounce, it's spelled unusually and actually pronounced Napatsi. So I think I can just say that Inuit and probably most other Indigenous or non-English
yeah.
speaking people are always happy to have people ask how to pronounce their names or words so that our names are just not, you know, butchered without being asked. So I encourage everyone to always ask if you're not sure, and it won't be offensive. And if it is, then take a page out of Norma's book and publish a book about it.
So is it okay to read if I do just a quick reading?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't even think of that. We have a few minutes. Why don't you read a couple of...
So we'll read from Eskimo Heaven, and it is at the point in the story where the priest decides that he's going to engage with Itura. And so it starts, we're on page, like we're maybe about 30% of the way through, and we'll start here. I nodded my head cautiously and moved forward, fingers stretched out and trembling, even though I told them not to. I felt the fur on the front of Itura's jacket. Rabbit? I asked. Yes, Tupik made it for me. Why are you talking to me today? I asked, even though I know when it comes to elders, you never ask, you wait for them to speak. But today I wasn't going to follow that rule. You know you're not supposed to ask questions, replied Atura. You know better than that, my boy. My boy. When they used that phrase, it sounded so affectionate, like you're suddenly friends, or better yet, family. Those 2 words made me braver. What do you want here today? I asked, still mesmerized by the hollow pupilless eyes of the tiny man in front of me. I want you to come with me. I want you to see my world, replied Atura. I want you to, as the young ones say, take a walk on the wild side, said Atura with a low throat giggle. Come with me, my boy. I want you to see the truth. I could feel the sweat starting to build on the palm of my hands. I could feel my heart pounding. I didn't know what to do, so I said, listen, Artura, I don't know what's happening right now, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk back to my house, and if you show up there, well, then I'll take that walk with you. I was trying to buy time. I was hoping that it was just another one of the weird things that happen to people who live in isolation, a hallucination. God would never allow an experience like this to occur, not this thing that was happening right now. God would not be a part of it. Afraid not, priest. It's now or never. That's the deal I'm giving out today. Don't be scared. You must see what we believe. You must understand that heaven isn't about peace, love, dove. Come along. Itura held out his weathered brown hand. Just touch my fingertips, and I'll take you somewhere you'd never dream of. I touched his hand, and here we were in the city. It was loud. There were cars zipping past us, fire trucks screaming, police cars chasing the fire trucks. There were people from the south dressed in jeans and shorts, dresses, and girls whose breasts bobbed past us. Nice, said Itura, as his head watches a budding cleavage pass by. Very nice. Where are we? I asked him. What's the name of this place? I thought that we were going to Eskimo Heaven. I couldn't understand any of it. A city with cars and people and plenty of noise, the constant noise. That's where we're going. Itura points to a building with golden arches beside it. That's Eskimo Heaven, Father. A McDonald's? Are you out of your head? A McDonald's is Eskimo Heaven? I'm furious. Why did I get suckered into an old man's game? Get out of here, Itura. Now, get me out of here. I reach for his old tanned hands and grab them tight. Nothing happens, not one thing. We are still standing in the parking lot of a McDonald's. Let's go have a fillet of fish. Itura is happy. He's so excited to go through the door. He strolls up to the counter, his ecstatic eyes slanted almost shut. I stand by the inside doors and watch. I wonder if the other people in here can see us. What do they see? We aren't real, are we? I'll have 4 fillet of fish and 2 iced teas and 2 small fries. Itura booms out his order. The girl behind the cash register doesn't blink. She doesn't see him as odd. He's wearing his old caribou parka and his leggings are turned out with the caribou fur on the outside. He is wearing one newer item, a pair of Adidas sneakers. Doesn't she see what a freak he is? Itura cups his hands around his mouth and yells at me, does that sound about right? I look around the restaurant and nod. No one seems to notice us. Itura reaches into the hood of his caribou jacket and pulls out some money. I'm standing next to him. I'm terrified. And the person who put me into a position of terror has become the only person who can help me. Itura has become my savior. God help me. Itura hands the tray to me. Here, my boy, you carry it. You're still a pup. I can feel my heart pounding as I slide into the hard plastic seats. Itura, what is going on? Can people see us? Of course they can, Father. Why wouldn't they be able to see us? But look how we're dressed. Don't they see us? Oh, some of them do, you know. The people who understand the spirits, they see us. So not everybody can. Itura has shoved an entire fillet of fish into his mouth. He nods. And the girl who took your order, she can see you? Oh yeah, that's Pokiak. She works here. Her mom was one of my wives. She's your daughter? How many wives have you had? I can't believe this conversation is happening inside of a McDonald's with children and their moms and old white men sitting around us. I'm getting tired. Oh, so many of them. Some died, some just left me, some found better hunters than me and moved in with them. When I think about it, only Tupik stayed with me. That's why I visit her. Pokiak is not my daughter, but I loved her like she is. I killed her real dad so I could be with her mom. Oh, God help us. I'm sitting in a McDonald's with a murderer. Itura, take me home. I can't do it. No, father, listen to me. It's simple logic. We were in a winter camp and I was single then. Pokiak's mom, Itura places his fingertips near his lips and kisses them. He flicks the air with them after his wet smooch. Spittle and fish crumbs sprinkle across the table like holy water on Easter Sunday. Magnificent. I needed a wife, so I killed her husband. What was that guy's name again? Let me think. I lean in close to him and heatedly whisper, this is not the time or place for confession, Itura. Why are we here? Itura looks at me and I see sadness pass over his face. His hollow eyes look even hollower. I turn my head away from him. I'm walking you on the wild side, father. This is the beginning. Kagachan, that's it. Itura smacks his hands together. His name was Kagachan. Itura's face brightens. Let me understand it, I say. You're a lonely, wifeless hunter in need of a wife, so you kill that girl's father. I point to Pokiak, and now, all these years later, you are talking to me about it? Why? To help you. Here, eat your fillet of fish before it gets too cold. Cold grease is like whale blubber on a hot day. You got to get the book. It's such a fun story.
It is. That was definitely one of my favorite stories.
And
I mean, I think, thank you for reading. I didn't even think to ask you, but we've gone over, it's 8:00, and I just wanted to say thank you again for that great conversation and for sharing your wonderful stories with us. So we're just going to wrap up, and I think Jorge is going to come back on and say goodbye for us. Thank you again, Norma, for this wonderful book and for this great conversation.
Great. Thanks for coming out, you guys. Have a good night.
Thank you both. That was so special, Norman and Napatsi, not only to hear your conversation, but to listen to the stories coming from your voice. I mean, I've adored the book, I've adored reading them, but hearing them from your own voice makes it even more special. So everyone, please go and get this book. It's phenomenal. Go buy it. Get many copies, give them to your friends. Scribble all over it, whatever you learn. We also have copies at the library, of course, if you like lending, borrowing books from libraries. But I do encourage you to buy it because it's a beautiful thing to own and have. So thank you everyone in the audience for spending your evening with us. If you want to watch this event again, or if you have friends that need to watch it and weren't able to attend, it's going to live on our Facebook page. So the library has a Facebook page. It's being live streamed there right now. And so you can go after the event and click on our Facebook page and find it there. My colleague Candy is going to put the link to that in the chat so you can see where that lives. Also, we're a public institution, so the program we do is for you. So we love your feedback because what you tell us shapes and informs how we do our programming. So we're going to put a link to a quick survey. It takes about 1 to 2 minutes to fill out, and all your replies will inform how we continue programming for you. So thank you for giving us feedback. Now, before I go, I want to tell you about 2 important events that are happening soon. So tomorrow, to commemorate Orange Shirt Day, we're hosting a screening of short films by Kelly Roulette, who's an award-winning local Indigenous filmmaker. And after the screening, there will be a conversation with the filmmaker. And then on next Wednesday, so a week from now, also at 7 p.m., we're hosting Montreal writer Kim Thuy, and she'll be discussing her new novel, M. And that one's longlisted for the Scotiabank Giller Prize. And it's inspired by historical events during the Vietnam War. And it tells the story of Vietnamese expatriates all over the world and the heroism of their daily acts of survival. So please come spend more evenings with us, come to more events, and wonderful to see you all. Thank you for joining us. Thank you too for this wonderful conversation. It was very beautiful. And bye for now. We're going to keep the event open for about 5 minutes after all of us leave the stage, just so that people can click on all the links that are in the chat. But for now, that's it for us, and we're leaving the stage now. So thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you.